Thank you so much. The old preacher was worried that he was losing his congregation. They were going down the wrong path, so he thought he'd use fear as a motivator to bring them back. He comes out into the church and he said, it won't be long, there's something terrible that's going to happen. Everybody around here. You could have heard a pin drop. He notices one little guy in the back just smiling, so the preacher said, I'm serious, ladies and gentlemen. Terrible things are going to happen to everybody around here. They're all scared to death. They're riveted. This little guy in the back starts to laugh, so the preacher zeroes in and said one more time, I'm serious, terrible things, tragedy, maybe death is going to strike everybody around here. Just then that little guy in the back jumps up and goes, hallelujah! Preacher said, how come you're so happy? He said, ain't from around here. I'm not from around here. Many of you are not from around here either, but you come here today under a common banner, an organization that is your voice for assisted living in the state of Ohio. You come from different communities, you know different residents, but you come here today hopefully with three objectives. Number one, to learn. This is an opportunity. Consider this day an important installment in your ongoing development as a professional that OLA makes possible for you. Number one, to learn. There's a lot of opportunities here, hopefully yesterday and also in today. Number two, to network, to connect, to meet some people that you've never met before, or to rekindle some old friendships. And maybe thirdly, to recharge batteries. There's something fun about coming here, getting away from the routine, to assess, to appreciate the people that you work with, the residents you serve, the communities that you lead, and the people who share common challenges and aspirations in your industry. But the networking part. How many of you have chosen, well, are there people in this room you don't know? Absolutely. Now, how many of you have chosen to sit next to someone that you do know? Raise your hand. You know what research says about human behavior? You are more likely to sit next to someone you don't even like before you would sit next to someone you don't know. Now check who chose to sit next to you. Because it says something about our comfort zones. Well, let's give you an opportunity right now. I trust you learned something yesterday, but let's give you an opportunity right now to connect. We're going to do a quick little interview. Everybody please stand. Now, see if you can find someone, if you have to leave your seat for just a moment, behind you, down the aisle, three things. Introduce yourself to that person. Secondly, find out what they hope to learn today from this conference. What are they here for? What do they want to get out of it? And number three, this is for you, I want you to see if you can find some good in the person that you're talking to. Now, I don't want you to go, Steve, what's good about you? No, that's not my point. I want you to just see if you can sense some good. Introduce yourselves, find out what the other person wants to get out of today, and see if you can find some good in them. 60 seconds, about 30 seconds each way. I'll start you and stop you. Ready? Go. Okay, if you're still shaking hands, let go. Have a seat. Have a seat. Excellent. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what just happened to the energy level in this room? It just went up. All we did was create an opportunity for you to network. And the energy went up when you got outside of your comfort zones. That is what OLA has done here in providing you an awesome opportunity to continue your development as a professional in the industry, as a leader in the industry, but you have to get out of your comfort zone to do it. Now, by show of hands, how many of you were able to meet someone you never met before or didn't know? Raise your hand high. Excellent. Put your hands down. Objective number one, accomplished. I would suggest there'll be an opportunity throughout this conference when you're going to cross that person's path again. and your relationship now with them has changed because of that short little interaction right there. Secondly, I ask, oh, by the way, if we didn't have name tags, or if you're not able to read their name tag from a distance, how many of you would be able to recall the name of the person that you just met? Now, all right, how many of you said, I am really good with faces, but I have a hard time with names? Linda, has anybody ever walked up to you and go, I know your name, it's your face I forget? They don't do that, do they? There's a reason for that. Now think of that for a moment. Most of us have had that experience where we meet someone, turn around and go, what's their name? Very practical reasons. Number one, what is a name and what is a face? A name, I would suggest, is a word. A face, on the other hand, is a picture. We remember more of what we see than what we hear. And that name or that word becomes important when we connect a picture to it and then we remember it. That's why organizations craft mission statements, vision statements. So when people get the picture of where the company, the organization, the community is headed, we see it, we believe it, we conceive it, and we believe more of what we see than what we just hear. Thirdly, I ask you to see if you could find some good in the individual you just met. Please, by show of hands high, if you were able to find some good in the person you talked to, put your hand up in the air. Check this out. You're looking to see if the people you talked to got their hands raised. Every one of you, yay, we talked, get your hand up. That's important. The reason I ask you to do that is we tend to find what we look for. If you go looking for the good, you tend to find it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have come here today to learn something about your industry, to connect with someone, to maybe leave here with not only new insights, but new names, new contacts, people to run things by, people to talk about best practices, contacts on the board, contacts in the office at OLA, you will get that. And you will leave here saying, that was worth my time, because you were looking to do just that. So we tend to find what we look for. The communities that you serve, the residents that you serve, your job, I would suggest, is finding the good in them and bringing out the best. At its very basis, that's what leadership is. And when we talk about play to win, we're talking about winning in the highest sense of the word. Not keeping score, but business is a game. You have to win. We have to be profitable. You have to be successful. And there are skills required to win at business. If you ever played a sport, if you played a game, if you played an instrument, you have skills you have to develop. People play. The game of life is about skills. Play to win. Purpose, leadership, attitude, and you. Play to win. And I say play as the operative verb as opposed to work. Because when we watch games, people have fun when they play. The only people who work a game is a referee. And if you've ever watched a referee in an NFL game, they don't look like they're having any fun. So play to win is winning in the highest sense. It starts with purpose. Why do you work where you work? There are other places you could work. Some of you may have already changed jobs. Some of you will change jobs. But the purpose, your personal purpose of your organization, I would suggest every member of the community of the organization should know what the purpose is. Do you know what the purpose of OLA is? What is the purpose of your organization? And then to be talking with the people that you interact with so people begin to internalize it. University of Minnesota, coupled with a large insurance company, they did a survey of 1,000 people, and they asked 3 questions. Number 1, If you won the big one, the Power Lotto, would you quit your job? 75% of the people said, do I look like I'm stupid? I'm out of here! Second question, if you would quit your job, would you continue to work? 73% of the people said yes. Third question, what would you do? Nearly 80% of the people said something that served people. Now think of that. Can you think of an occupation, a profession, that is more closely tied to service, to servicing people, than the assisted living communities in which you work? It's at the very core of it. And when I read that survey, I thought two things. Number one, it's a two-edged sword. It's neat to hear people say they want to serve others. But we have a lot of people out there who haven't yet connected what they do on a daily basis with serving people. So, I suggest to you, why do you work where you work? What is the purpose statement of your organization? How do you personally connect it with it? The core values. If I ask you for just a moment to close your eyes, just close your eyes for 10 seconds and think about your highest priorities in life. Do that right now. Close your eyes and think about your highest priorities in life. Okay, open your eyes. For any of you, did your mind wander from work? Did pictures of certain things come to your mind? Maybe family members? Right away, we think of families, spouses, children, siblings. Sometimes we think of our own health. Maybe you were thinking some of the residents in your communities. But to be in touch with our core values, an organization has its purpose. I think it's imperative. Winning leadership begins with a solid understanding of what the purpose is. Many people have no idea. I remember when I would walk into organizations and I see a mission statement or a vision statement hanging, and I ask the clerk behind the counter what they think of it. They look at me like I have green antennas coming out of my ears. They have never even thought about what the purpose of the organization is. Winning starts with a clear understanding of purpose. Covey, in his best-selling book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the rules is begin with the end in mind. Think about that for your organization. I said that winning, though, is predicated on skills. Take a look at these words once. Let's just take the top row. Read it from right to left. Say the word. Ready? Purple. Okay, let's do the next two lines fast with a little bit of enthusiasm. Ready, go. Okay, now, let's start with the top row again. Just this time, ladies and gentlemen, say the color. Orange. Okay, now let's go to the second line. As fast as you can, as loudly as you can, let's go through the next 3 lines. Ready, go. Green, yellow, orange. What happened? We had a meltdown. Let me tell you what was going on right there. You've heard of left brain, right brain, no brain, okay? The left brain and the right brain, the hemispheres were going back and forth. On the left, the logical was trying to read the word or say the color. The right brain was much more creative. And where you were once taught to read the word and the color and the word were supposed to be in sync, all of a sudden it's different. And we were having a difficult time bringing that together. But I would suggest if we practice that, you would be able to say the word or the color flawlessly. But it would take some practice, some skill. Leadership, too, is a skill. Many of you have seen this image before. It was first drawn in about 1915 and appeared in a magazine over in Europe. If you've ever taken a psychology class, you've seen this, the old woman or young woman. By show of hands, how many of you first see the old woman? Raise your hand. Raise your hand high and look around the room once. All right, put your hands down. How many of you first see the young woman? Raise your hand. Very interesting. Put your hands down. How many actually say they can see both? Raise your hands. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really a psychological, sexual assessment of your subliminal preferences, and I've just learned a great deal about each and every one of you right now. Now, what you do see, if you can go back and forth, is you have to let go of one image before you see the other. You can't see them simultaneously. What you see first gets in the way of what you try to see next. And if you saw the old woman first, it blocked your ability to see the young woman, or vice versa. Now, for those of you still trying to figure out what's up there, let me just show you. I don't have a pointer here. If I were the old woman, this would be my profile. I'd be looking like this, and there's this long chin coming down. She's looking this way. If I were the young woman, I would be turning this way, and you'd be looking at the side of my jaw this way. Now, if you can't see it, just work with the person next to you real quickly and compare what your own perceptions are and see if you can help each other see both of those images. I'll give you about 20 seconds. Go. Is anybody still like, I can't see one of them up there? That'll bug you all day. You'll lie in bed tonight and say, I could not see that old woman, right? Okay. If we take a look at the essence of what you do as a leader in your community, of leadership, it is about service. There was a best-selling book written in 1970 by a guy named Robert Greenleaf, and it was called Servant Leadership. And it took until about 1970 for someone to put it down in a book that had been written for probably 5,000 years of what the essence of leadership is. Is that not what you do? If you could choose one word that was your job description, would it not be serve? To truly serve. Now, when I ask people what makes a good leader, there's usually a couple of things that come up besides service. There's two things. People, number one, say a good leader can pass out a compliment. A good leader can recognize good performance. They can praise somebody. So, okay, they can be complimentary. Number two, they say a good leader has a sense of humor. All right, they can compliment, they have a sense of humor. So let's do this real quickly. Let's just practice that skill. Two skills. Compliment, sense of humor. What I'd like you to do right now is just turn your chairs, if you could, and face the person that you're sitting next to. Or if you don't have anybody, turn around and face the person behind you. But just quickly face the person. So square off and face the person. All right, here's we go. Now already this is getting a bit uncomfortable staring and looking at somebody, I'm sure. Two things. Repeat after me. The first skill is you're going to pay them a compliment. Then the second skill is you're going to exercise your sense of humor. So repeat after me on the count of three. You look great today. 1, 2, 3. Oh, hold it. Fake it till you make it. Let's a little more enthusiasm. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Now say, I'm just kidding. All right, square back up with me. Once again, what just happened to the energy level in the room? It just went up. Part of your job as a leader is, thank you very much, to bring out the best in others where people can have fun. Fun and laughter has little to do with joke telling. And if there's any laughter, we are laughing at ourselves like we just did there. I think another key trait, though, truly of what a good leader does. And it gets to the point where I was asking a little bit ago about why we remember faces better than names, pictures versus words, but there's another thing involved. When I meet Melinda, and I'm introducing myself, or hi Melinda, how are you? And I'm talking to her, all of a sudden, if I don't remember her name, it's not because I didn't have a good memory technique. I would suggest it has little to do with memory, but a lot more to do with, was I listening? Because I begin to think, who does she look like? What does she think of me? What am I going to say next? And then I turn around and think, I can't remember her name because I didn't listen. What if I said to you, all name badges off? I'll give you $50 for every person's first name you can remember when you walk out of this room. Would you remember more names? Absolutely. Remember the theme song from the TV show Cheers? Sometimes you want to go to a place where everybody knows your name. How important that is. But it takes some listening. Is that not what you do as a leader in your organization, in your community? You want to know what the residents are thinking? You have to listen. You want to know what your employees are doing? You have to listen. To the nonverbal as well as the verbal. And you and I both know there's a lot of the message communicated that we have to listen for that is non-spoken. I know a lot of people that are walking around looking like they've been weaned on a pickle. Sourpusses. Okay? And we pick that up. We see so much of the message communicated sometimes non-verbally. When we think about our job as a leader, truly, it consists of removing obstacles, allowing people to do their best work. Every employee in an organization has to be able to be productive to say, this is a place where I can do my best work. When we begin to feel like we can't do our best work is when we begin to think about, where else do I want to go? Do you know what the number one reason is people leave their jobs voluntarily? If we could classify it with two words, you know what it is? My boss. Now, that doesn't mean always that the boss is wrong. The employee could leave because their boss is good and tough, and they don't want it, they can't cut it, so they leave. But it does speak to how important the supervisory-employee relationship is. My boss. In fact, bosses or managers are why people stay where they stay. How about the people that you are a supervisor for? Do you listen? Do you look for the opportunities to find the good, to let them know when they're appreciated? I ask this question when I go in to speak at grade schools. I've asked it in colleges. I ask it to executive audiences. I'll ask it to you now. How many of you, truthfully, straight up, no nonsense question, how many of you truly get too much appreciation and recognition? Raise your hand. The only thing that changes with that one, I get a loud no, we don't, is the depth of the voice. So I go home and I thought, well, I'm going to check out how I'm doing with my own family, and I find out most of us could bump that a long way and still not be overdoing it. So I would encourage you to think about your opportunities to catch people doing things right. I had a guy one time in a seminar said, that is the antithesis of my boss. He doesn't understand that. In fact, we call him a revolving SOB. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, any way you look at him, he's an SOB. Oh. The whole subject of change, there was a whole presidential campaign built on that. Think about the change that has occurred in your industry. There's one thing to know about change. First of all, it's very embedded in leadership. Leaders are about changing the status quo, making positive changes, making things better. But change causes stress. Would you agree with that? How many of you have any stress whatsoever in your life? What are the rest of you, carriers? I don't have stress, I give stress, right? I mean, you just think for a moment, what is happening in your industry with regulations? Is it getting more complicated, more difficult, or easier? What is the expectation of your customers? That is, your residents, maybe your organizations, your executive leadership. Is it going up or down? Do they expect more or less? Is anybody in here being asked to do less with more? No. Which means with rising competition, more difficult industry dynamics, higher expectations, what it is incumbent for all of you to be getting better at what you do as a human being, as a leader. And that is precisely one of the reasons OLA exists. To give you that opportunity to continue your development as a professional, as a person. Anybody ever seen that word before? Metathesiophobia. It is the fear of change. Many of you have change going on right now, not only in your industry or in your communities, but maybe in the teams or in the organizations that you work on a day-to-day basis with. Your job as a leader is to create change. Not all change is good. Not all movement is forward. But that's why you are a leader. And that's one thing no other community has. It's you. The world is too big, too much going on, too many crimes, too much violence, excitement. You get behind in the rat race. It's an incessant strain to keep pace. Science empties its discoveries on you so fast, you stagger in hopeless bewilderment. World news is seen so rapidly you're out of breath trying to keep up. Everything is high pressure. Human nature can't endure much more. Atlantic Journal, June 12, 1833. Does it sound like it was written for today? Now, I think most of us could say that change has accelerated, but even back then, it is a relative statement. We've had it, we're continuing to have it. So think of it this way. Each one of you as a leader is a change agent. You have to be the focal point you have to lead by example on what those changes are and how the organization makes sense out of them. Leadership is first of all an inside job. It does start inside. So when we're thinking about changes that we are leading in the organization, behavior that we expect out of our employees, we have to first say, what's going on with me? Am I truly leading by example? You remember this guy? Came from a great movie. Some of you may remember it. It was called A Few Good Men. Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise. And if you remember, this movie was about integrity, which is the number one trait that people say we need, we admire, we have to have in a leader, regardless of level. If the person is not full of integrity, if we can't trust them, we can't follow. You must have integrity. It supersedes, it transcends competence, knowledge, and skill. People have to have integrity. But the dialogue went like this. Jessup, he said, you want answers? He said, I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. And Jack Nicholson says, you remember that. You remember that. But do you remember what he said right after that? Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago. You curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know, that Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, and loyalty. We use these words as a backbone to a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom I provide, then questions the manner in which I provided. I'd rather you just said thank you and went on your way, or pick up a weapon and stand a post. But either way, I don't give a darn what you think you're entitled to. I get a little carried away. With that one. But it was all about integrity. When people discount their leader, their supervisor, their organization, they would say they don't live up to the values that are written in that mission statement. They don't have integrity. Sometimes we don't have integrity when we say, I'll do something, and then we don't. I'll be there, and I'm late. So all of us have that tension between what's expected and what we do to deliver. But it comprises our integrity. It's a beautiful word. Integrity comes from the Latin integritas, which means whole, complete. That what I say and believe and what I do are one and the same. The most essential ingredient, trait for a leader is to have integrity. And I think people can handle the truth. Part of your role as a leader, part of winning, is calling it the way you see it. And one of the most difficult places you'll ever find is when you may have to fire an employee. How many of you ever had to do that? One of the toughest things you'll ever do, right? Nothing fun about it, because when you hire somebody, you fill the box in the organizational chart. When you fire somebody, you are messing with somebody's life and other people in their families that are now affected. But sometimes it's not the ones you fire that will give you trouble. It's the ones you don't fire that should have. And by the time someone does get fired, what does everybody on the team say? Should have happened a long time ago. You see, you do have integrity. You show your integrity when you uphold the high standards of the organization by holding people accountable for what's expected of their performance. You make it clear. You communicate the truth. You help them. But when it comes to the point where they're pulling the team down, your leadership is on the line. And everybody's thinking, when is he or she going to deal with it? That's the tough part. You have human resource departments that can help you with that. But I would suggest that is one of the biggest challenges of any leader, of how do I make sure I got the right people in the right spots to serve the residents and the organization best. You know, it's amazing how much parachute and parachute sound alike over the roar of an airplane engine. That gets to the heart also of leadership in listening. Most of us are not good listeners by nature. Most of what we hear gets mixed up. In fact, experts tell us we listen with about a 75% rate. Quick little listening quiz. Just go to a blank piece of paper somewhere. Let's just find out how good of a listener you are. Number one, this is a 5-point quiz. Very quick. I'm going to go quickly, so you must listen. It's part of the exercise. In the following list of names, George, John, David, Adam, and James, and Grace, which names began with a J? Number two, suppose you were given these instructions. Go to room 315 and look in the lower right-hand drawer and bring me all the boxes of pencils I left there. Would you look in the right or the left-hand drawer? Well, write it down. And secondly, what room would you go to? 531, 315, or 135? Write it down. Number 3. This is true or false. In the following list of words, be, see, free, glee, flee, and me. The second word I mentioned was free. True or false? Number 4. Your spouse asks you to bring home meat, milk, cheese, bread. So, you bring home milk, peas, bread, and meat. What did you forget? Write it down. Last question. You are the driver of a school bus, and at the very first stop, 13 children get on. Moving along at the next stop, 5 more children get on, and 2 get off. At the next stop, 8 children get on. At the next stop, 4 more children get on, but 1 snuck off without you noticing. How old is the bus driver? Write it down. I'm going to let you grade your own papers here, and I'm going to trust that you're going to have integrity here, all right? Number 1. Number 1, the answers were John and James. Number 2, which drawer? The right-hand drawer. Room 315 or 315. Number 3, 20 points. I never mind about the points, but the word was C, so the answer was false. Number 4, what did you forget? Cheese. And number 5, how old is the bus driver? Didn't say. The very first thing I said is you are the driver of a school bus. But we listen very selectively, don't we? Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a good reason for that. We have this dichotomy, this difference between rate of thought and rate of speech. Most of you can think at about 750 to 1,000 words a minute. You can only speak at about 150 to 300 words a minute. Although personally I've had gusts up to 550. Okay? So there's an opportunity to be thinking and thinking while you're listening, processing more information, and we miss some important things said. In fact, have you ever had the experience when you're talking to someone, you're not even done with that last syllable rolling off your tongue, and the other person jumps right in? It's as if they're quiet only because they know they get to talk next. So I suggest as a leader, you have an opportunity all the time to work on that skill. To truly just listen and then give some indication that you heard what they said. It sounds like this. What I heard you say was this, right? And then maybe a question or two to clarify. It is amazing. In my coaching career, when we work with executives on those listening skills, they make the smallest improvements. And the recognition from the people they work with is sky high. And the executive will go, I can't believe how a little improvement in my listening draws such positive affirmation. But listening has that kind of leverage. Quick little exercise. Count the F's. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds. It's real quick. Ready, go. Okay, write down how many F's you got. Okay, compare with the person sitting next to you. All right? How many got 3? Raise your hand. Look around the room. Raise it high so people can see. How many got 3? How many got 4? How many got 5? How many got 6? How many got 7? How many got 8? How many got 9? All right, ladies and gentlemen, this time I want you to work with the person next to you. You see, I never told you not to, but it is a tendency right away, especially during times of change and pressure, we go it alone. You sat there working with someone right next to you, even though it was tough time constraint, never compared notes. Now, work with the person next to you. Ready, go. Oh. All right. Let's check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, did you get more F's this time when you talked to someone? Let's go through the, how many got the very top line where it says count the F's? That's one. Secondly, finished is 2, files is 3, of is 4, of is 5, scientific is 6, of is 7, how many F's in the bottom is 8, and find is 9. There were 9. Here's your learning point as a leader. When you create an opportunity for people to work together, the results are usually better. But it often doesn't happen on its own. As the leader, sometimes it's you that has to say, whether you're the supervisor or the manager, doesn't matter. I'm talking about a leader, and every one of us has to think of ourselves as leaders. How about if we put our heads together in that project and come up with a better idea? How about if we share what we're both working on, come back, compare answers? It's people working together. 2 heads are usually better than 1. It's just the dynamic that is a tendency of people not to do that unless leadership helps orchestrate it. It's all about trust. Take this quick quiz with me. Just write down your answer. The U.S. Department of Labor recently reported that the number 1 reason people leave an organization is it A, B, C, or D? Just write down your answer. Number 2, cigarette smoking has shown to decrease life expectancy by 5.5 years, but a recent Mayo Clinic study showed positive emotion can increase life expectancy by, write down your answer. According to a recent Gallup poll, what percentage of the American workforce received no praise or no recognition in the last year? A, B, C, or D? Write down your answer. Now, compare your answers with the person next to you and see what you came up with, and I'll give them to you in just a moment. All right, I'll give you the answers. Number 1, what do you think the answer is? C. 2, the answer is D. D. Number 3, the answer is C. But ladies and gentlemen, the question for you is, how are you doing on that? With your residents, your co-workers, your community, your family, your spouse. You want truth about some of that? Ask your family how you're doing on some of that. The family, your spouse, sometimes remains one of the richest sources of honest, truthful feedback. As a leader, use it. Praise and recognition is the most powerful motivator on the planet. People will do amazing things when they feel like they are appreciated. That's mainly the job of a leader. The A in play stands for attitude. How can we underestimate the power of attitude? The impact of attitude. I asked a group one time, what is an attitude? I got lots of responses. I said, what's a bad attitude? The guy stood up and said, it's any attitude that's different than the one my boss has. I thought, isn't that interesting? You know? But our attitude is this synthesis, this compilation, this lifelong gathering of experiences, of knowledge and feelings, and it's how we see the world. Is the glass half empty or half full? our attitude. And everybody knows that your attitude shapes your behavior, right? What people forget is that your behavior affects your attitude. Long before you feel like acting enthusiastic, you should act enthusiastic, and you will begin to feel enthusiastic. Now, let's take that word, enthusiasm. Hopefully you've come here with high enthusiasm for this conference. It's a beautiful word, enthusiasm. It's a great quality, a great trait to have. It comes from the early Greek, two words, en, which means within, and theos was who? God. The early Greeks, when they saw people going through their conversions, this strong, intense passion and animation, they had no word for it, so they crafted entheos. It's as if they had God within them. What a compliment to be given. I'm remembering what Vince Lombardi said when he took over the Green Bay Packers. They were a losing ball club in 1959. He said, "I will form and fashion you into a world championship team, but you have to follow the program. You have to follow me. You have to be fired with enthusiasm, or you will be fired with enthusiasm." Now, what if your level of enthusiasm truly determined your effectiveness as a servant, as a leader, as a member of your community? What if your enthusiasm really did have an impact on the people you work with and on the residents that you serve? But doesn't it? Absolutely. Does your level of enthusiasm have anything to do what you will walk away from this OLA trade show and conference with? It sure does. Now think if we took a scale of 1 to 10, 1 low, 10 high, and everybody had a number, a scale on that scale, a number on that scale for your level of enthusiasm for being here today. 1 low, 10 high. Here's what a 5 looks like. Totally blank. Okay? I want you to turn next to you, show the person right next to you what a 2 would look like on that scale. Show them what a 2 would look like. You're so positive you can't even fake being negative. All right, now, I want you to show them what a 7 would look like. An 8. A 9. A 10. Beautiful. Once again, what just happened to the energy level in this room? It went up because your behavior affects your attitude. Long before you feel like doing something, you do it. And I know you must do that every day because there are days where you work where it isn't always fun. But you know as a leader you have an obligation to, number one, smile. To say good morning. In fact, I know departments where the morale of the department is affected for a week by how the boss comes in on Monday morning and says or doesn't say good morning. I know people that can say good morning and you think you've just been cussed. I know people that can tell you to go to hell and you couldn't wait to make the trip because they say it so nicely. How we say it has a big impact on it. But it does have a lot to say about our attitude. Can any one of you muster up a smile? And I say fake it till you make it because if you are working at it, it's not faking. But it's amazing how the body was built for congruence. When we act a certain way, we begin to feel a certain way. It takes 14 muscles to smile, and it takes 64 muscles to frown. Take the easy road there. Say the word with me. All right, a little bit of enthusiasm. Let's go through it once more. One more time. What's the white of an egg? What's the white of an egg? John's going, what's wrong with yolk? Anybody know? It's an egg white. Technically, it is any Aggies in the group? It's an albumin. But I'll cut you that. It's an egg white. But in that short of time, ladies and gentlemen, you're thinking, oh, you tricked us. In psychological terms, you know what I did? I conditioned you to think that the next word coming would rhyme. And if you and I are not cognizant of some of the negativity in the workplace, we could become conditioned to think that way and not even realize it. OLA exists to be a voice for your industry, but also to provide a venue for you to come together and get recharged with good people. People who have the same struggles, but people whose motivation and ambition you admire. Are there people at this conference you like, you admire, you respect? Use this as those opportunities to keep that friendship going. Iron sharpens iron. You've got a lot of iron in this room. You've got a lot of iron in your organization. There, we talk about winning. Vince Lombardi said, most people think, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. I met his son, and his son said that is the most misquoted quote of my father's. What my father was quoted as saying, winning isn't everything, but the will to win is. What's your will to win where you work? You have what color is this? Is that pink?
No, it's blue.
Blue. I'm colorblind. Anybody else in here colorblind? 6% of males are colorblind. Okay. This little handout, this blue handout, just quickly let me draw your attention to it. And you will notice it says perception exercise. Let's do this real quickly. I'll read it. Below is a description of a person you will soon be working closely with. You have not yet met this person, but a reliable source described them to you. Read carefully the italicized words below, then form a general impression of this person. And you see the words. Just read them to yourself. Intelligent, skillful, industrious. Quickly read those silently. Now, based on that description above, circle one of the words in each pair below, which is closest to the picture you have formed of this person. Move through the list quickly. There are no right or wrong choices. Go with your first thought. Circle real quickly whether you think they're generous or ungenerous and work through the list. Go quickly, please. 4, 3, 2, stop! Just want to make sure nobody's sleeping on me. All right. Now, by show of hands, we'll do a little survey so you can see what everybody else wrote down here. How many of you circled generous? Raise your hand, please. Look around the room. Look around the room. Raise your hands high. How many circled ungenerous? Raise your hand. Okay. Next word, shrewd. Raise your hand. Raise it high. Wise. Okay. Look around the room. Compare this. Unhappy. Raise your hand. Raise it high so people can see. Happy. Okay. Irritable. Good-natured. Humorous. Humorless. I'm going to ask you to be observant here. How about jumping down to number 10? Attractive? Raise your hand. Unattractive? How about 13? Creative? Stubborn? Friendly? Harsh? Impatient? Considerate? What do you notice? Mona said this, there was consistency, right? The same people. So did you quickly see there's a division? There is a difference in how you perceive. Your first name, sir? Ross? When you read through that, first of all, did you see that the first set of descriptors, was the person generous or ungenerous?
I cheated. I went off the verse.
Well, that's okay. Did you think they were generous or ungenerous? Generous. Oh, ungenerous. Happy or unhappy? Unhappy. Humorous or humorless?
What do you think? Humorless.
Humorless. What was a key? How did you get there? What influenced your perception?
Cold.
The word cold.
And cautious.
So read your descriptors would read intelligent, skillful, industrious, cold, determined, practical, cautious, articulate.
We have warm.
By now you just realize I changed one word. Those of you who got the word warm, everything else was the same, but if those of you got the word warm, tended to view that person positively. If you perceive them as cold, there was a negative connotation. I can split the group with one word. How do your residents view you? How do your coworkers view you? The community. And one of the ways that we show that we do have warmth is we smile. It communicates so much. A good little thing for us to keep in mind. All right. I won't do this one because some of you have seen this before. But ladies and gentlemen, there are three kinds of people in this world. There are those that make things happen. There are those that watch things happen. There are those that wonder what happened. You must be on the forefront of making things happen. You play to win. And I'll close with a quick little story that reminds us about staying positive. If you read any of the research, any of the anecdotes about customer service, you know that a customer will remember more of the negative than they will the positive, correct? The same could be said about our residents, our coworkers. We have a tendency to focus more on the negative. I have 10 children. My wife homeschools. I'm the athletic director and the assistant principal. Every once in a while, like once a year, I'll take my wife out to supper. She deserves it. She loves salmon. I said, sweetheart, you will love this meal. We go to the place. We had to wait to get inside. The line was so long. I said, Molly, it's worth it. Bear with me. The best salmon in town. Took us a while to get seated. Took us a while to get our order. But when the waitress finally came over and said, what would you like? No sooner did my wife say salmon, and she said, I am so sorry. We are all out of. I saw my whole evening going down the drain. But before I could say anything, she said, but anything you want on the menu is on the house. And that goes for your husband too. Was I impressed? Oh man, I thought, number one, somebody was empowered on the spot to fix a problem, to truly fix something they could be blamed for. She had the ability to do that. She handled it so well. But number two, I thought, well, I grabbed that menu. What do you think I ordered? Actually, I think I got the cheapest thing on there. I was so impressed with that, I thought, I don't want to take advantage of that hospitality. But when I walked out of there, I said, I got a decision to make. Am I going to be like most and focus on the negative or the positive? Am I going to focus on the fact that they ran out of salmon or that some woman on the spot fixed it? I walked by a line of people 3 times as long as when we came in. And as I walked by that long line of people, you know what I told them? Order salmon. Not really. For some of us, we'll never cross paths again. In the short time that we have been together this morning, I extend my best wishes for the remaining day and for you to truly capitalize on the rich learning and support you have from OLA. This organization represents your voice in the industry in the state of Ohio. Invest in it. Use the opportunities here to learn and to network and to recharge your batteries. Thank you so much for listening to me. I wish you all the best. Play to win. God bless.